I do think that savings is a very different concept for my generation versus like the younger set at the moment.
Welcome back to the CashFlow podcast. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. Today, I'm here with the inevitable Angie Kim. Angie, great to have you on.
Hi.
am so excited. You are, anybody who's watched you, whether it be at an event or on social media, knows that you are a spitfire of absolute knowledge and passion with what you do. So I'm excited to get into it.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, I'll try to own up to the to the hype.
No hype, all reality, all reality. So everybody knows you, the AK Real Estate Team. Is that what your
AK Real Estate is the name of my brokerage. Yeah,
Perfect.
people call me Ange, AK, Angie. I tried to go with Angela, but it never stuck.
It never sticks, huh? And anybody in our San Diego real estate industry, they've seen you again at events. You recently a guest speaker at a San Diego Real Producer event. You are the current president of ARIA. How do you find time to get all this stuff in while being a single mom?
That's a very good question, but I think a lot of women who juggle multiple different tasks or pursuits are often asked this question. I think that's the wrong question. I think the right question would be, what drives you to, pursue so many different interests? And I always say that like people can make things work if they really wanted to. Like, have you ever seen a guy who's like ready to date? He's like focused no matter how many other things they got in their life, right? Like it's the same thing. I think women are, especially when we are single women, single moms, we definitely want to make sure that we just like buckle down and get everything done. But I've always had a lot of interest, and I think that kind of drives me in that respect. I'm just really curious about being mid-core at everything.
I love it. And I want to get back to family because I think family is super important. Let's talk a little bit real quick background. You've been doing this for more than a couple minutes. How long have you been doing this? How did you get into it?
Okay, so I originally thought I was going to become like the Korean American version of RGB and go off to law school. And then love took me across the pond. I ended up getting my master's in city planning and specifically transport planning. And that kind of led me to transit-oriented development. My dissertation was on the San Diego trolley. And then from there, it just kind of progressed. I lived and worked abroad in Europe for many, many years, about 9. And during that period of time, I had renovated a couple of like Victorian and Edwardian homes.
Wow.
And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I just knew I had a vision. So I took, my kids in whatever state they were in. It was chaotic at one point because we were renovating this Victorian home that was built in 1880.
Wow.
And when we dug into the sewer, we saw the original like Victorian sewer. It wasn't cast iron. It was actual ceramic filled basin type sewer system. It was phenomenal. It was interesting. It really helped me understand like builders in the UK need their tea and biscuit before they start any work. They literally won't do anything unless you provide tea and biscuits. But it really taught me a lot about the industry. I love design. I've always loved design. And I love how transformative design and a home can be to a family or to people. And so that naturally progressed to me at starting my own investment company when we moved back from London. I was kind of a faculty wife, a stay-at-home mom. We needed money, but I didn't know how to work in a traditional job because I had, 3 young kids. So I was like, I'm going to start up my own investment company. I'm going to buy some properties with the money that we made from the other properties that we had bought and sold in London. And one thing led to another. I got great cap rates, and then I got divorced. And my girlfriend's like, just while you're applying for other jobs, like get your license, have in your back pocket.
Right.
I was like, okay, back pocket stuff is always good, I guess. I got my license, and then I looked at my ex-husband, and I was like, we weren't really getting along all that well. I was like, you want to go house shopping? And he's like, okay. And I'm like, come on, kids, we're going to go and find Daddy a house. And he wrote my very first Zillow review, a rave review.
Nice.
So I never looked back after that.
When all this is happening, you obviously took a lot from your experience and background. I mean, a Victorian home, doing that kind of renovation is amazing.
Yeah,
What-
we had to bring in brand new steel beams because I wanted to open up the layout. All the homes there are like railroad row homes, and we wanted to open up walls. And literally, we had like 3 or 4 guys holding I don't know how many pounds. It was like 25,000 pound steel beam, like
Wow.
on their shoulders, bringing it into the home to hoist it up. It was a very different type of
What
construction.
was your philosophy on this? I mean, you obviously with that planning background. What was your philosophy on actually making this work?
I always say that the people that you surround yourself with inspire you. And I was so lucky because at that time I was like in play groups and I made friends with other moms and people that were very creative. So, like, for example, one of my really good friends, her husband was the photographer, and he is now the photographer of the USA today in the UK. In one of our play dates, I became friends with, like Andy Serkis and Lauren Ashburn, he's Lord of the Rings. And, just all these creative actors and reporters and BBC people and just all that kind of inspires you. You enter their homes and you just get to know them and you look around and you just kind of absorb like a sponge and you realize like, oh, this is something that really speaks to me. And then I just literally took that idea and started recreating it in the homes that we had bought. And we bought and sold about 3 times when we lived in the UK. So it gave me a lot of brand new kind of design ideas that I think when I brought it to San Diego is very old fashioned. Like California is so old fashioned. We're so stuck in this like chill beach culture.
That's
Even though
correct,
we've
yeah.
had a lot of new people move into the city, it still has this underlying like America's greatest city chill vibe.
Laid back, that's
And
right.
I think when I started renovating the bungalows I bought in North Park, and I started putting in new kitchen design concept ideas and it was everything that I had brought from all the homes that I have been in when I lived in London and Berlin. And I was just like, I wanted to create something different that sparked, energy.
Right.
I think people feel energy when they walk into a home. I know I do.
How do you translate that same passion and your Victorian style and European style when you get something that's not as not as large of a project? Like, let's talk about you had a property in Carlsbad.
Yeah.
Okay. It obviously wasn't the same Victorian type scape, but how did you take that same vision and passion to make that work?
So going just backtracking a little bit, what he's talking about is my very first investment post divorce. I was so poor, but I was like, I'm going to put all my money into real estate because that's what I really understand. I didn't really understand 401ks all that much. I didn't really understand Roth IRAs. But I'm so glad that I did it when I did, because the second I could refinance and purchase and save up enough money to purchase my first investment property as a divorced single mom, that then the $334,000 condo that had a Section 8 tenant then turned into, once I renovated it with I renovated it in mind, I had a very strict budget.
Okay.
But I made it really clean. Like a lot of people back then, this was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, they didn't think about putting wood tiles on, like wood-like tiles on the floor. And we did that throughout the entire property and just made this condo all of a sudden feel like a modern beach house, even though it was only, I don't know, it's only about 750 square feet. It's not very big.
Got it.
But I was then able to turn that after $40K renovation costs, purchasing it for 334. I think 5 years later, I sold it for 535,000. So
almost a profit of 200,000 right there.
Yeah, it was really good, and it was actually really meaningful to me because my best friend Christian ended up buying it, and he was looking for properties, and he's very risk averse, and he's a first time home buyer, and he's a VA, but he fell in love with it. And now I think since he bought it last year, maybe the year before, I can't remember, he has, I think, comps now for 2 bedrooms in that complex is going for 610. So he's made
money.
quite a bit of equity on the home. So that makes me really happy.
And so you saved. nonstop saving to get that first investment, and then your vision is able to get that to the next.
Okay, wait. Can we talk about savings just for a moment?
Let's talk about them, because nobody likes to use the save word at all. Nobody
Yeah.
saves any money.
No, everyone, okay, like millennials, I don't know about Gen Z so much because maybe they're not like really working and saving, but I see so many younger people, like when you get to my age, they're either older than you or younger than you. I see a lot of people who go on multiple, I don't understand how they do it. They go on multiple vacations, they live a certain standard of living, and they use a lot of their disposable income. But I was raised in a period of time, I'm a Gen Xer, don't tell anyone,
With you.
that, you know, we maybe when I came from a lower middle class background whose parents ended up going broke, and we maybe went on one road trip a year, maybe two, and I was always taught to save from a very, very young age. So even now I feel guilty when I spend money on leisurely activities. I'm trying to set aside a portion of my income to have like play money, but I do think that savings is a very different concept for my generation versus like the younger set at the moment. And I was able to, I worked really hard, man. I worked like 80 hours a week. My kids, I used to, when they were really young, there was all this talk around that time about free range kids. I don't know if you remember the kind of studies and data that came out of it. Actually, the author Jonathan Haidt, who wrote Anxious Generation, had a previous novel, and that kind of was surrounding that 2013, 14 period where a lot of parents were reporting other parents for leaving their children at home. So I used to tell the kids, like, don't tell anyone mommy's out at a networking event or out working or showing properties or like on the weekend doing open houses. Because I used to do 1 to 2 a week. So that's like 6 to 8 a month. When I first started, my kids were ages when I got divorced, 7, 5, and 3. Mm-hmm. So I used to inform them, educate them on, you know, who to call, emergency services and all that kind of stuff. I was terrified that my neighbors were going to report me because I live in Carmel Valley.
Sure.
No hate on Carmel Valley. We love it there. But, you know, it was that period of time. It was a very cultural movement that was kind of seizing parental beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I was terrified. But, you know, it's actually taught my kids to be quite resilient, independent, free thinkers, which, you know, I grew up as a street rat. Like, I grew up in Orange County with, like, cholos and, you know, like, cholas in the streets. There were people shooting up drugs. You know, me and my brother was on our little Huffy BMX bikes. You know, we were totally free range because my parents worked nonstop.
Same thing. Just go outside. You're going to be home when you need to be home. That's where the food will be there, and that's it.
But going back to saving, it's not just about saving, it's a lifestyle. And so I am trying to be more balanced about that. But, you know, when you really want to build something for whether it's yourself or your family, and for me, obviously it was for my 3 kids, those first 8 years, I just put my head down and I hustled. Absolutely. I really hustled. I mean, I danced and I hosted dinner parties and I did a whole bunch of other fun things, but I really it took a lot of grit and focus.
I love that. And again, more people need to hear the S word, savings, because that helped you get going. But you don't just do things here in San Diego as well. Talk to me about, you bought out of state. I mean, you had an investment out of state as well. Talk to me about that. How did you find that, and how did it continue to build that momentum for you to do what you're doing now?
So I had a really good friend. I was first introduced to him through Megan Sawamura, whom I'm sure you kind of know. She's in lending. And she said, hey, meet my friend UJ. He has since passed of cancer as a young father of 2 kids. But he and I became really good friends. Mm-hmm. Sorry, he just passed away like 2 years ago, so it's kind of hard. But he was working with Brad at the time, and Brad at the time was flipping a lot in Del Cerro. That was like his jam.
Brad Dam was flipping tons in San Diego, Del Cerro area. Okay.
Yeah, LA Gardens, Del Cerro. And remember, that was when you could still find proproperties over there for $350,000, $400,000. Now they're over $1 million.
Yep.
But he would go door knocking, and he was saying, hey, I want to introduce you to my contractor broker that I'm really good friends with and I do work with. So Brad and I became friends, and he's like, hey, by the way, I have these 2 properties. And I didn't have like 400,000 amassed cash to buy in cash in San Diego. And really, as an investor, you have to look at your numbers. Like you have to look at your ROI.
Yep.
And for me at the time, I wanted cash flow. I wanted passive income with anything that I had saved, but I also wanted to gain a little bit of equity. So he was like, I have these 2 properties in Indianapolis, because he grew up in Indianapolis. Who knew? He was like, I'm thinking about selling them. I should have bought both properties.
Right.
But I only bought one of them for $77,000.
Wow.
And I cash flowed 10%, even after property management fees, everything. And when I make a decision, I'm pretty straightforward with it, and then I execute. I follow my gut. I'm low risk with investments, but I knew this was going to be simple. I bought it. I rented it out immediately, got a great property management company out there. And then I sold it about 4 years later for $116,000. But in that meantime, I had just been getting 10% returns on it. So it really helped fund like my kids, soccer, dance, gymnastics, our little family trips. It really helped
and
a
it was
lot.
affordable too. You didn't have to stretch outside your means
Yeah.
to be able to get something that not only produced income, but then at the end of the day, after holding for a bit, you had plenty of equity to then roll into your next project.
And a lot of people were doing it at the time because California was starting to get really expensive, especially San Diego. But the beauty of doing that, if you're willing to take some short-term risks, you could always do 1031 exchange and then just bring the money back to San Diego, which is what I ended up doing. And, it's just been a game changer for me, understanding how real estate can transform someone's life, not just in their primary residence purchase, but, as an investment. And you really don't need a ton. I do think you need to be educated on the risks involved, and too many people have gotten hyped on social media about the short-term gains without understanding what they're actually doing.
Yep.
And flipping was crazy at that time. Everyone was flipping.
Talking about flipping and investing, biggest challenge or a lesson that you took away from being in that space?
So I learned that I can drive without insurance a 23-foot truck all by myself. My son was there to prove it, so I know it's just not in my head because we didn't take any videos or photos of it. But I realized that when we were staging and we rented that truck, I was like, sure, I can handle a 23-foot winding around the streets of Soledad and Nautilus, not a problem. Thank God we didn't scratch any other cars. We returned it intact a day later, and everything was fine. So I can drive. I'm one of those few Koreans that can actually really drive. I can parallel park that back. I can back it up real good. I can back it up real good.
I don't know.
Without a camera.
in that part of town, that's not easy.
No.
For sure.
I think the hardest lesson that I've learned is that you can't make promises to clients because there's a lot of factors in real estate you can't control. Like the house next door could go into foreclosure, and then all of a sudden you've lost $500,000 in value of your own home.
Absolutely.
I had one client that was referred to me by someone, and she ended up getting a hard money loan to sell her house.
Right.
And it got very intense because I ended up, and I don't recommend it, doing a dual agency. I rarely do dual agency, but for that particular one, it was a while ago, I did because the buyer insisted on working with me. And it got really hairy because the hard money lender was on my ass. Then I had the seller on my ass. I had the buyers who loan wasn't going through.
Right.
It was so stressful. Ended up being a 30-day escrow to almost a 60-day escrow, maybe 45 or something like that. It really wasn't, now in hindsight, that crazy of a timeline, but I couldn't sleep for like 60 days straight. It was I lost so much hair. I wish I had lost weight during that time too, but I didn't. So yes, you can't promise them like I'm going to sell your house for the highest possible price without actually having a strategy. And I probably I learned to communicate better from that transaction. I've learned that dual agency really is a conflict
Oh, yes, absolutely.
of interest. So yeah, a lot of hard lessons. I mean, she hired an attorney. It got nasty. And if people think that in this business, and we hardly see it a lot in San Diego, but it's very litigious,
Oh yeah,
and you can
100%.
get yourself in big doo doo if you're not careful.
You're 100% about that, and I want to use that to kind of segue back into something we talked about before. I want to talk about that balance of family and everything. Okay, you are on like I said, you're on board. You've closed tons of transactions.
Well, I mean, I'm small peanuts compared to some other
Well,
people, but thank you.
but you're lone wolf the way you run your own show.
Yeah.
And how is it? Let's talk about when you were doing the best in this industry, when you were crushing it, how you were able to also have to balance out with that family as well.
Yeah, I think that this is a challenge a lot of women face that men do not face. So I'm glad that you're highlighting it. 2020, we all thought we were going to die in retirement as real estate agents.
Right.
I was looking into other careers, and then it blew up. We were considered essential workers. I got so much business from 2020 to 2022, and a lot of agents actually started failing in 2022, but for some reason, I was like riding this wave. And those 3 years, I've produced so much, and my GCI was like off the charts. And because of that period of time, because I saved, I was able to purchase, do other 1031 exchanges, and like basically turn that $334,000 condo to a fast forward, like a $1.1 million duplex, as well as other properties. And so it really catapulted me to a level of financial contentment that I hadn't experienced since I first started in my career from scratch. And I had to start all over at the age of 36. When you are overeducated, overqualified as a woman, but you put your career on hold for someone else, and you essentially are unhireable. You have to go into the workforce, not just delayed, but delayed by almost 3 decades. It's an exponential factor. And so me juggling, when you ask me like, how do you juggle these things of being a mom and taking certain priorities? I have real respect now for women who are mothers, even whether they're married or not, whether they're in a committed relationship or not, mothers who work and have children. We have to prioritize and let just not think about the little things.
Right.
The consequence of that has made my kids be more resilient, more independent. It has forced me to have real talks with them that probably other more present parents don't have to do, because they're always there and always taking care of things for their kids.
Right. And that's what I wanted to have you touch on as we get close to wrapping up, is just how our families, even when we have success, sometimes they take a back seat and we have to refocus and reorient to make sure they're taken care of as well.
But I will tell you, like, I will give you some superpower talk, right? Like, you wake up at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I had 3 kids in 3 different schools, so that drop off was
Yikes.
hellish. It's like well over an hour.
Yikes.
I would wake up really early in the morning. I have a real love for cooking. It's one of the ways that I show love to my children, because that's how my mom did it. And she was a working mom. She was a nurse. So I wake up and I make 3 to 5 things in the morning. And then like the food's already all there pretty much for the rest of the day. And then I will go about, do my work. I always try to fit in working out, because
Absolutely.
movement for me is therapy.
Sanity, absolutely.
Yeah, and I like to suffer with people in classes.
I would
then,
agree with that.
Yeah, and then I'll check in with my kids. They all have, unfortunately, iPhones from a very young age, because it was a great way for me to track them, to communicate as a family, to have calendars that all synced up. And then I really relied on the people in my circle. So I put a lot of time and energy into my soulmates, which are my friends.
Right.
And I'll give you a good example. My son just turned 21 this year, and we all took him out, all my friends. So, like all my 30, 40-year-old friends, we all went out and celebrated him turning 21. We took him out, and we were like 20 deep, and he only had like 3 of his friends. Obviously, he goes to college elsewhere, so all of his friends couldn't be here. But he was going around the room going like, my mom is so cool. Like, I love her so much. And like, she couldn't have done this without you.
Guys.
And that's what he was trying to imply. Like, it does take a village. So that's how I juggle it. I don't all do it by myself. I rely on other people to help me. Like, hey, my neighbor, can you check to see if they left the garage door open?
I love your approach to it. You are, like you said, just a wealth of knowledge. You've crushed it in your own personal career. Your investment career has been fabulous, and then family. That's amazing.
And it's been kind of linear. I know a lot of people during that period of time like overextended themselves. I would always say to my clients, like, don't overextend yourself. Like, just look at the numbers and make a decision. You don't have to get all caught up in it.
Yep.
Like, just like if you're going to invest in San Diego, it's the best place. We're still growing as a city. There are certain other cities in different states that I would highly recommend. Like Montana's blowing up right now. Idaho is pretty high price per square foot, but like there's still a lot of great places where people are moving. They don't want to move like all the way out east from California. Indianapolis is still a great place to purchase, but you have to I execute kind of linearly. I'm not like spread out to too many different pockets because that scares me.
Again, your record speaks for itself, but your philosophy has made it well worth taking in and for others to follow. So I appreciate you coming in today. Everything that you've said totally resonate with me, and I think it'll resonate with our audience. So everybody,
Thank you.
Angie, Kim, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in to the CashFlow podcast. We'll catch you next week. Thank you again.